The thing about Five Nights at Freddy's is that even after all these years of games and theories and game theories, there are still huge gaps in our understanding about basic things like the names and identities of characters, main characters. And for years, there has been one character in particular who is so mysterious, so enigmatic, so frustratingly vague, they have driven fans and theorists alike to the brink of madness in an attempt to make them fit into the story in a way that makes any kind of sense. Even worse, this is a character who Scott Cawthon seems to think we should have had all figured out mere weeks after they were introduced in FNAF 4. That's right, he's here, he's there, he's everywhere. It's the Fredbear Plush. And I am here today to tell you that, guys, I did it. I figured it out. I know who the Fredbear Plush is. I know what their role in the story is. I know what Scott was intending for us to understand all those years ago. And believe me when I say, we've had it very wrong this whole time. So sit back, relax, and join me as we uncover the definitive answer to what the Fredbear Plush is all about. The Fredbear Plush first appeared in the 8-bit playable cutscenes of FNAF 4. It's actually the very first thing we see in that game. They accompany our main character, known as Crying Child or Bite Victim, throughout almost the entirety of these cutscenes, popping up in different places and communicating with him somehow, and only him. We see it as in-game text dialogue, but to him it's probably in his mind, almost like an imaginary friend. Although there does seem to be something more to this plush than meets the eye, because not only does it speak with knowledge of Bite Victim's innermost thoughts and feelings, but it seems to possess a mind of its own. It's an entity unto itself, which obviously begs the question of who this entity is, and what exactly are they doing here. Well, let's take a look at what they actually say throughout these cutscenes to get a better idea of who they might be and what their motivations are. They are sympathetic to Bite Victim in a way that literally nobody else in this world is. Everyone bullies him and relentlessly gaslights him for being scared of the restaurant, but the plush tells him to be strong and that he's not alone. Taking it one step further, they even confirm that his reason for being so terrified is valid, saying, "Don't you remember what you saw? And you know what will happen if he catches you." Whatever happened seems to be something that only Bite Victim and the plush know about. So, what happened? Well, to answer that question, let's take a look at the other key dialogue in these cutscenes, specifically the first and last ones. The first line of dialogue Bite Victim has refers to the other 4 plushies, one for each of the core animatronics, as his friends, and on his deathbed, they appear once again, with Fredbear telling him that they, all 5 of them, are still his friends, and that it specifically will put him back together. So you have 5 ghostly animatronic plushies, one for each of the core 5 animatronics in the game, the only friends of a traumatized hysterical child who has seen something terrifying in the shadows which he misunderstood, during a time when we know both Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and Fredbear's Family Diner were open at the same time, with rumors about haunted animatronics coming to life at night and hiding your body, and William Afton still working at the restaurant as an employee, all clearly happening during the summer. Add it all together, and I think you know where I'm going with this by now. This is taking place in the immediate aftermath of the missing children incident, and that's what Bite Victim saw. His misunderstanding was thinking that since his friends got stuffed into animatronic suits, those animatronic characters are his friends. It was his very sad way of coping with this unimaginable trauma. When he died, he came to possess Golden Freddy, the suit that killed him, but since he didn't die in the suit like the others and his frontal lobe was severely damaged, he was only able to partially possess it, which is why Golden Freddy is so ethereal in a way that the others aren't, and why he's the one who has to be put back together by reassembling his birthday party in FNAF 3. He was the 5th, the special one, the biggest mystery of the original tetralogy, which FNAF 4 tried and failed to wrap up with a neat golden bow. It all makes a lot of satisfying narrative sense, and it's all in my first video on this channel, which I still stand by. But one of the biggest points of criticism I saw on that theory was the fact that Bite Victim can't be the fifth because he didn't go missing, and he wasn't lured into the back room by William at Freddy's, like the FNAF 1 newspapers say. And I'll admit, I didn't do a great job of explaining my way around that in the video, but I am going to explain it quickly now. The MCI is widely known as an event where William Afton lured 5 kids to the back of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and stuffed them all into animatronic suits, but that's actually not entirely true. The FNAF 1 newspapers say that 2 children were reportedly caught on camera being lured into the back room of Freddy's, which led to Afton's arrest, or not, the next day, and that sometime after that, the prior disappearances of 3 additional children were linked to that incident, meaning that only 2 out of the 5 were definitely lured to the back room, while the other 3 could have been taken under entirely different circumstances, i.e. Midnight Motorist or Bite Victim. Bite Victim did not go missing, but this incident could still be linked by police to the disappearances, as it would definitely be suspicious for the best friend of the 4 missing children to die at a Fazbear Entertainment-owned restaurant within the same short span of time, when the disappearances were still fresh, but before the brand was tainted. It's also quite possible that even though there were a few witnesses, the company covered up his death in order to save face, especially if it could result in the owner's son being charged with manslaughter. Finally, Scott wrote these newspapers as vague hidden lore in the first game with no plans whatsoever to make any kind of sequel, let alone a multi-million-dollar media franchise, so it's easy to imagine that as he mapped the story out with each game, he wanted the 5th death, Golden Freddy's death, the animatronic he always knew was special but didn't exactly know why, to be different somehow, unique and special, with an important role in the story. And in that case, I'm sorry, but good storytelling trumps strictly adhering to each line of these 4 pages like they're the 10 Commandments. Anyways, that is the Bite Victim explained, again. But now we're left with an impossible question. If Bite Victim is Golden Freddy, then who is the Fredbear Plush? We've deduced that they are somehow psychically linked to the Bite Victim, that they share his knowledge of the MCI, and that they promise to put him back together. But that's pretty much all we get from FNAF 4, and it leaves a lot more questions than answers. To find out the plush's true identity, we have to go deeper, much deeper. The very first scene of the next game, FNAF World, mirrors the very first scene of FNAF 4, where instead of the eyeless Fredbear plush in a black void, we see just their eyes, and we know it's their eyes because they repeat the final line of dialogue from the last game. I will put you back together, which also tells us that in this opening scene, they're once again speaking to the Bite Victim, and that makes the rest of this dialogue very interesting. Everything that happens out there has an effect in here. This is a safe place, a sanctuary, but something has gone wrong, and now it can be seen here. Something went very wrong. That's why I'm here, but I won't let the same happen to you. I will put you back together. So after his death, Bite Victim and the plush are together once again in this weird digital realm. It's the spiritual plane which connects all of the hauntings and agony of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza together. Things that happen out there in the real world, what Fredbear calls the flip side, change what happens in here, in FNAF World. According to the plush, something that went wrong in the real world sent or condemned them to FNAF World, and they're going to make sure that the same fate doesn't befall Bite Victim. Or, what went wrong was the bite itself, and they're going to make sure his spirit doesn't get trapped in FNAF World like they are. And we see exactly how they're going about this in the clock ending. During the main game, if you idle on Fredbear's dialogue for too long, you'll be able to talk to the Fredbear plush again, this time in the form of Glitch Bear, and they task the player with finding clocks around the map and using them to access hidden minigames which set up Happiest Day. They call it leaving breadcrumbs for him to help him find his way, obviously referring to Bite Victim. Some people think that Glitch Bear can't be the plush / Spooky Eyes because they directly contradict each other's dialogue. Spooky Eyes says this is a safe place, and Glitch Bear says that's a lie. But the reason for that is that they're speaking to 2 different people in these moments. They want to put Bite Victim at ease, but when they address the player character, they can be more blunt about the situation. Anyway, after completing all 5 clock minigames, the plush tells Bite Victim that the pieces are in place for him, and all he has to do is find them. So there you have it. FNAF World is telling the story of the plush setting up Happiest Day with the help of the player to put Bite Victim back together, tying the whole first arc of the series up by bridging the gap between FNAF 3 and 4. It seems simple and satisfying. But reading the story of FNAF World that way not only neglects to answer the question of the plush's identity, but it completely overlooks a huge, incredibly important part of this game: the way it breaks the fourth wall. The most frustrating part of FNAF World, the thing that makes it so incredibly difficult to theorize about, is the fact that it is unbelievably meta. So meta, in fact, that a decent portion of the fanbase thinks the whole thing should just be chucked out completely. Because how could a game in which Scott Cawthon himself is an actual character be canon to the series he created? Well, the answer is interesting. The answer is complex, but it solves everything. Speaking of interesting, if you've been finding the video to be interesting so far, please go ahead and leave a like to let me know that you're enjoying it. It really helps me out and it gives me a better idea of what you guys want to see. Also, while you're down there, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. I put out about 3 fresh FNAF videos each month, and I wouldn't want you to miss the next one. If you have the means, you can join my Patreon too. You'll get ad-free cuts of all my videos, shoutouts, and access to members-only polls for video topics. Now, let's get to the bottom of this crazy digital rabbit hole. Something has gone wrong, and now it can be seen here. This is what Fredbear Plush tells Bite Victim. But how does whatever went wrong on the flip side actually manifest in FNAF World? We actually do know the answer to this because it's in the main story of the game. Fredbear tasks the player with finding out why bizarre creatures and glitched objects have been cropping up in the world, and he thinks that the answer has to do with whatever went wrong on the flip side. He even says that whatever happened is causing this world to fracture, and he refers to the monsters as misguided side effects of this incident. Many of these monsters are in fact characters from Scott's unsuccessful pre-FNAF games. When the player gets to the end of the game, they reach the game's security system. Lowering this security system will allow the player to, as Fredbear puts it, strike at the heart of whatever is corrupting the world. And what do we find behind the gates, the final boss of the game, the heart of corruption? None other than Scott Cawthon himself, who actually complains about the insatiable demands of the fanbase and chastises the player for ending the story on their own terms by killing him. So, just to clarify, FNAF World is being filled with glitches and misguided efforts of Scott's old games, fracturing because of something a clearly upset Scott Cawthon did in real life. And whatever he did is the thing that went wrong, which Fredbear Plush is referring to. So, what did he do? The answer is pretty obvious when you think about it actually. He made FNAF 4. FNAF 4 was a game which was meant to wrap up the original story of the series, as we discussed earlier, and in that regard, it was a failure. In a Steam post from about a month after the game's release, he expressed disappointment that nobody, MatPat, was able to figure out the story as he envisioned it. His best attempt to resolve the story of the first 4 games cleanly and provide the fans with a satisfying conclusion went very wrong, and ended up doing the complete opposite. The fandom was confused, divided, and decidedly unsatisfied in a way that they just hadn't been with the series up to that point. What came next? FNAF World. FNAF World is still the canon explanation of the ghost mechanics in FNAF. It's the digital spirit realm which connects the 8-bit minigames to one another and reflects the events, murders, bites, etc. of the in-universe real world. But it is also Scott Cawthon's brain, which sounds insane, but it starts to make a lot of sense the more you think about it. Everything in FNAF, the first 4 games especially, comes from Scott's mind and his alone. It's his creation, and the entirety of its lore, stories, characters, and world exists in his own mind. The disappointment he felt after FNAF 4 failed to achieve his vision is the corruption. It wasn't disappointment with the fans, it was with himself. This idyllic vision of his creative brainchild is literally falling apart, invaded by monsters taking the form of all of his previous failures. This interpretation explains the game's infamous drowned ending, which happens when the player travels too many glitches deep and ends up at the bottom of Old Man Consequence's lake to find this screen. What appears to be 3 figures sitting and watching TV, with the text "Happiest Day" obscured off screen, but quite readable in the game files. This is what lies buried in the deepest part of Scott's brain, and it's a vision of his personal happiest day, sitting on the couch with his 2 kids playing video games together for eternity, something he directly expressed missing when he retired from FNAF in 2021. The reason this screen is buried so deep down inside his mind is because at this moment, when he's feeling all this disappointment and self-doubt regarding FNAF, quitting and moving on from the series entirely to spend time with his family is what he truly wanted, but also something he was deeply ashamed of admitting to the fanbase. That is what this ending means, but it is far from the only thing that this theory explains. Something went very wrong. That's why I'm here. If we take that at face value, knowing what we just learned, the Fredbear Plush is saying that they are literally here in this game because this game has been made. The thing that went wrong was FNAF 4, and this game's very existence is the result of that. And how do they propose to fix it? To rectify this mistake? To put Bite Victim back together, to complete his story the way FNAF 4 failed to do. But who actually ends up putting Bite Victim back together, both by playing FNAF World and completing the good ending in FNAF 3? Well, now that the 4th wall has been well and truly shredded to pieces, I think the answer is obvious. We do. Guys, what if the Fredbear Plush is just a stand-in for the player? Not just in FNAF World, but in FNAF 4 too? What if they are just an in-game manifestation of our presence in this digital world? I know that sounds insane, frankly, but bear with me for a second, and take a look at the plush's dialogue throughout the game. I honestly think you'll be surprised, just like I was, at how well this lines up. Something went very wrong. FNAF 4 failed to resolve the story, and that's why we, the player, are here playing this game now. We won't let the same happen to Bite Victim, meaning we won't let his story stay unresolved. We won't let him stay trapped in this darkness forever. We will put him back together. As Glitch Bear, we are talking to the playable character we control, telling them that they need to find the clocks and leave breadcrumbs for Bite Victim to find his way. When they do find the clocks, it's actually Fredbear who completes the minigame, not the playable character. This actually finally explains one of the weirdest lines in the whole game. You were made for one thing. This is literally us, the player, telling our playable video game character that they aren't real. They aren't going on an adventure of their own free will. They were made, programmed, to act as a vessel for us to complete our mission. At the end of the clock ending, we once again address Bite Victim and let him know that he can rest now that the pieces are in place for him. And now that we're staring once again at this pitch black screen with these 2 glowing eyes, we see the truth. They're our eyes, reflected back to us as we stare into our computer monitor. So that's FNAF World, but what about FNAF 4? Well, I think MetaPlush theory applies there too. Why is the plush in almost every scene Bite Victim enters? Because we, the player, are omnipotent in this world and can see everything. That's also why the plush knows what Bite Victim saw, because we, the player, know about the MCI because we played the previous games. And then you have their final line, "I will put you back together." I think this was Scott's way of telling us right at the end that we have been the plush the whole time, because we know that we did put him back together in the previous game. It was just hard for us to make that connection at the time because we were reading into things way too deeply and weren't expecting this character to be so meta. This was meant to be Golden Freddy's origin story, and the plush was never meant to be an actual in-universe character. FNAF 4's cutscenes breaking the 4th wall also potentially explain things like Chica's missing beak and the weird plush trap mocap toy. They're meta references to other games, references only we, the player, would be able to understand. Miraculously, MetaPlush theory even wraps up the box, the contents of which Scott has described as the pieces put together. The box is shown in a black void under a spotlight and has two locks horizontally distant from each other, exactly how we see Bite Victim and the plush in their final moment together. They are the two keys required to unveil the resolution to the story of the first 4 games. Golden Freddy, the centerpiece of the MCI arc, and us, the player, who has to put him and his friends back together. The story of the first 4 games is literally the pieces put together. This theory is definitely out there, but I definitely think it answers a lot of questions about the mysterious plush and allows them to fit into the story cleanly. But what do you guys think? Agree? Disagree? Have a theory of your own to support or debunk it? Make sure to dial in the comments and let me know. Also, while you're down there, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. That's all for now, guys, and as always, thank you for calling 808 Freddy's.